Hi, Bill Van Patten here, Treasurer for the Greenhills Homeowners Association. And I'm presenting to you today a budget proposal that the Budget Committee is recommending to the Board of Directors for our association. As you can see on this first slide, the Budget Committee members are Dave Wrighthouse, Chair of the Committee, who is also President of the Board of Directors, Kevin Bernstein, Marlene Holst, and myself, again, Treasurer and Board Director for Homeowners Association. I'd like to begin by displaying for you what our typical monthly and annual costs are. In this chart, you can see relative percentages of what we pay in typical monthly and annual expenses. So on the left-hand side, you can see security, grounds maintenance, lake maintenance, management, and so on. On the right-hand side, you can see streets, which is upkeep, basically sweeping, cleaning, spraying for weeds, and so on. Disposal, general maintenance, pool, and so on. And as you can see, the left-hand side are the heftier parts of our expenses. Security at 46% and change, grounds maintenance, lake maintenance, management, and utilities, and so on. Now, the Budget Committee examined these expenses in detail over the course of our meetings and scrutinized them to see if there are any places where we cut back and reduce some of our expenses. And after much consideration, we found that we could not. The few things we could would be nickeling and diming, $100 here or $100 there, which really makes not much difference in a budget like ours, which, by the way, is in the millions of dollars per year. One area we did find we could reduce is in administration. If you look at that, that is 4.7% of our monthly or annual expenses. And in this category, we included the newsletter that is published every month and mailed out. By going digital and putting that newsletter online and trying to get most people to our website to read it, we would save ourselves about $20,000 to $25,000 a year in printing and mailing costs. And that is the only area we could find anything substantial. But as you will see in a moment, even $20,000 to $25,000, although it sounds substantial, is not significant enough to help us with some of the problems we will be facing. So let me take you now to expenses and income comparisons. This chart you're looking at now is a line graph of income and expenses for the last 5 years. These are all based on budgets online, so you can go look at these yourself. They're in our greenhillsestates.org website. And in 2013-2014 budget cycle, you can see that there was a healthy difference between our income and expenses. But as you look across, you'll notice two things. One is that the blue line stays relatively flat. It doesn't increase. This is because we've had no fee or due increases for our homeowners association since 2007. So that means for approximately 12 years, we've had absolutely no increase in income. But as you can expect, over the years, inflation has taken its toll on our expenses, and we are increasing our expenses by roughly 2.5 to 3% inflation rates over the years. This is why the red line is creeping up. Now, it looks okay for now in the current year, 2018-2019, but if we project out, which is what a budget committee should do, we see the following. That in 4 years at a 2.5 projected inflation rate, we have a problem. The expenses at that point will meet our income and actually exceed it. In other words, in 2020-2023, we will no longer have enough funds coming in every month to pay our bills. Again, this is because we've had no increase in dues over the last 12 years, but our expenses have generally increase due to inflation rates and other kinds of things that have happened that most of us can understand because we also pay our monthly bills for our homes. So this is not a good sign. By the way, if you're wondering why we're projecting a 2.5 inflation rate, if you go on any sites, we consulted 3 of them, the general projection for inflation rates is on any given year for the next 10 years is somewhere between 2.28 for 1 year up to 2.98 for another year. So we just rounded it off and did an average of 2.5 inflation rate, which I think is what most economists right now are using as well. Okay, now this is our monthly and annual income expenses. Again, these are the monthly bills we pay for security, water, garbage disposal, pool maintenance, and all those kinds of things, electricity and so on. Now what we need to look at is what we call our reserve funds, which is the money collected to pay for major infrastructure repairs, such as our roads, walls, as sidewalks, and so on. These things have what's called a shelf life. And every 3 years, we have a company that does an analysis of where we are in our infrastructure, when something is projected to need repair, and how much it's going to cost us. So we went through those reserve studies and saw the following: that for next year, because of projected road costs and sidewalk costs, among other things, we're projected to pay $2,898,893 in repairs and maintenance. Now, this is a worst case scenario, which I'll get to in a little bit. The following year, it's $724,000 and change, and each year after that, you can see how much is projected. Now, what's problematic about this is currently in revenues, in our reserve funds, we only have over $3 million. It's about $3 million, just under $3,100,000, which is not very much when you consider that first year, next year, we're projected to spend $2,898,000 of that. Now, if we graph this out, what this means for our reserve funds is the following: that you can see where we are with our reserve funds in 2018, 2019. On the left-hand side, you can see figures that $3 million and $3,500,000 at the top. You can see where we are right now, somewhere between that. If we spend all we need to spend or projected to spend next year on repairs and maintenance, we will go down to under $1 million, about $600,000. The following year, if we spent what we were supposed to spend, we will now be in the red. We will no longer have money in our reserves to pay for any infrastructure repairs and maintenance. Now, there are historical reasons for why we're slightly underfunded in these reserve funds, which we won't get into here, but it goes way back to underfunding at the outset when Greenhills was first founded and developed. Okay, so what does this mean? It means we have two things going on. We have income and expenses in 4 years being a problem because our expenses will exceed our income and we won't be able to pay our bills. And then in terms of maintaining our roads, our sidewalks, our walls, our guard shacks, our clubhouse structure, and so on, anything that's infrastructure will deplete our reserves, assuming a worst case scenario where we have to pay out everything. This means that in a very short amount of time, we will deplete our reserves. And it means in 4 years, we won't be able to pay our bills. Now, we were working with Jensen on some of these initial expenses for next year for infrastructure, roads, and so on. And there are cost-effective ways where we can do some things. But we will still, by the end of 2 to 3 years, have used up 50% of our reserves. And in some cases, with the short-term savings we're doing, we're actually kicking the can down the road such that the major repairs we'll need to do next year, we may have to do in 5 or 6 years anyway. So this is not a good sign. This means one and only one thing, that somehow we have to increase our monthly and annual fees to homeowners in order to pay our bills and to shore up our reserve funding. So the Budget Committee came up with 2 proposals. Here's the first one. The first one is what we call a 10% fee increase per month. Now, technically, a board of directors for a homeowners association can only make a recommendation for the next year's budget. So at the end of the slideshow, you will see that we are only making a recommendation for next year, which is this 2019-2020 column. But we are also recommending to future boards to continue with some kind of fee increase for the next 3 years after that. So if you look at the blue line, what that means is that for 2019-2020, on the baseline of $123 of dues per year for people who do not live on lakes, for example, their fees would increase by $24 for a baseline of $147 per month on the red line. And you can tell I am knocking the change off because we want to work with even numbers when we do the budget anyway. If future boards continued with a fee increase at 10% per month, then you would see that would be adding 14 the following year, 16 the following year, and 17 the following year if you look at the blue line. Continuing on the red line, when you see actual money you pay per month in dues, for the next year, it'd be 147, followed by 162, followed by 178, followed by 196. Now, what this projection in fees gives us is an annual variance of the first year of $383,927. What an annual variance basically means is the difference between our income and our expenses. So that purple line means that next year we will be $383,927 in the black. That's excess, which is what we want, right? And the following year, 522. The following year, 677,000, and so on. So we would have a healthy difference between our income and our expenses. Our projection, or our recommendation, if you look at the green line, is to put a minimum of 75% of that variance into reserves. So that means next year we would put $297,945 in the reserves. The following year, if boards continue with an increase, $391,825, and so on. That means that over the next 4 years, we would generate and put a significant amount of money into our reserves, which would shore those up for the big picture of infrastructure repairs over the next 4 to 5 years and down the road. If you look at the bottom line where it says additional variance for expenditures, this is the money left over after we put 75% of variance into reserves. So next year, for example, we would have $95,981 in quote-unquote mad money or spending money we can use on something. The following year, if boards continue with an increase in fees, $130,000 in change, and so on. This is money we could use for those kinds of things that aren't projected for maintenance and things we haven't thought about. We might need to, we might say, oh, we want to redo this landscaping over here. Well, now we have the money. Or we have to replace a tree over there, or this or that. We will have the money to do that and not have to worry about our expenses exceeding our income. Okay, so that's one proposal. Again, 20% for next year and 10% thereafter for 3 years. And as one final reminder, we can only recommend, the board can only do a budget for next year. So the only thing we'll be recommending at the end of the slideshow is for next year. Things from then on would be for future boards to consider, and we would encourage our homeowners to have boards actively look at continued increases for a while so that we can remain in fiscal health. Now, if you look at how this charts out over the next couple of years, you can see that our income will exceed our expenses by a considerable amount. And if you look at the difference between the blue and red lines for next year and each year after that, imagine 75% of that difference of those lines going into our reserves to shore up money for our infrastructure problems. And then we would have 25% of that left over, as I said, for mad money. So this looks to be a very healthy scenario if we adopted the budget for next year and future boards continue to adopt a fee increase, at least until 2022 and 2023 fiscal year. Okay, our second proposal is a little steeper, a little more costly for homeowners. It is a 15% increase. And I'm not sure why this is showing this way. It says 20 to 10% fee increase per month for that blue line, but it should say 20 to 15%. My apologies. If you look at the bottom, proposal 2, it does say 20% and 50% thereafter. So if you look at the blue line, you can see the increase for next year would be the same for everybody because that would be 20%. But in the years following, the increases are slightly higher because we're suggesting 15% increases thereafter. So the bottom line of 147 for next year will then become 169, then 195, and up to 224 in 2022 and 2023. That again is the red line. This would increase our annual variance, as you can see, very healthy. Next year it would be the same as the previous slides. But the years after that, it would increase substantially so that by the third year after, with an increase of 15% each year, we would have an annual variance of over $1 million. And if we put 75% of that variance into reserves, you can see how much that is each year. Again, for next year, it stays the same as the previous proposal, but then it increases every year after that. And then again, we would also have additional variance for expenditures remain the same for next year, but then increasing every year after that. Now, what we're showing here and on the previous slide is the baseline of 123 for homeowners, for $123 per month for homeowners who don't live on lakes and don't have what we call cost center additional fees. For people like me who live on the lake, we pay more than $123 a month. I pay currently, for example, $146 a month to live on the lake. And to pay the extra lake maintenance fees and other kinds of things. For people like me, not only would I have a $24 increase per month over my 123, but that difference between 123 and 146 I pay right now, there'd be a 20% on that amount, which is about $4 more. So currently I would be, my 146 would go up by $24 plus another $4 on top of that as a 20% for the lake maintenance fees. So again, this is the bottom line of the basic dues of $123 per month. If you look at this graphically, you can see that again, this represents a very healthy fiscal situation for us. And again, if you imagine the difference between the blue and red lines over the next years, taking 75% of that difference and putting it into reserves, we would increase the health of our reserves and have money to do all the infrastructure repairs we need to do, and actually not cut corners, to do actual real repairs and maintenance that will contribute to the health and vitality of our community. Now, what are our specific recommendations we're making to the Board of Directors? The Budget Committee is making the following: that for next year, we increase regular assessments to $147 per month per annex household for the next budget cycle. Again, this represents slightly less than a 20% increase. Remember, the 20% increase was like $24.06, 60 cents. We're just eliminating the 60 cents. The maximum allowed increase for a board without approval by the homeowners is 20%. So that's why we're staying within that margin. We will ask the board, somebody on the board, to make a motion and discuss this at the July meeting. Our next recommendation is to increase all lake management associated cost center fees by 20%. That's what I talked about earlier for someone like myself. So currently I don't pay $123 per month. I pay $146 a month. So I pay an extra $23. So I would pay another 20% on top of that $23. So I will wind up paying not $23 but $27 approximately per month, in addition to the $123 baseline fee. Now, a third recommendation the Budget Committee is making to the Board of Directors is to create a Block 6 Lake Management Cost Center that is applicable to Block 6, lots 29 through 41 that you see here. What happened historically is that these lots that are on the lake were never annexed and to the cost center lake management fees. So people like myself and people who live on lakes that do pay the fee are basically paying for the lake management for the lake on Block 6, and the homeowners there are not paying for it. So we're asking to correct this historical mistake and have a lake management fee for those lot owners, and that will be $18 per month. Now, we are also asking to increase the non-resident fee from $22 to $26 per month. What this means is that people who rent homes then will be charged an additional $4 per month on top of the $22 that they're currently paying as a surcharge. And that will be a motion that we're recommending next month to the Board of Directors. Our next recommendation is to create what's called an aged, underdeveloped, and/or abandoned properties fee equal to $26 per month. This is for those lots who are vacant with no homes on them, where sometimes it's just dirt, or it's worse, it's weeds, and creating places for wildlife to develop. Or in some cases, for example, in blocks 14 and 15, for example, there are lots with pads on them and meters that have remained that way for years without any homes developed on them. So the idea is to create an extra $26 per month fee for those people, because those lots require maintenance and to make them look better than they do now. And so we want to have that fee to pay for that. Now, what we actually call this, aged, underdeveloped, or abandoned properties, and so on, will have to be created by the 2020 Budget Committee in conjunction with property management. And so that will be a motion we'll be making to the board of directors as well. Our final recommendation is this. We want to add a landscaping line item to include trees, shrubs, and other greenery due to drought-related losses. Those of you know who have been paying attention to what's happened in the west entrance, we've had to we basically had to gut and redo that landscaping due to poor irrigation and infrastructure there caused by developers when they put that east gate in the landscaping. When the drought hit, the irrigation and the water problems in that particular spot were so severe that it caused substantial damage to trees and to grass and so on, creating a very unsightly entrance. That is costing us significant money, and it's not part of our reserve fundings. So what the Budget Committee is recommending is those kinds of things for all common areas that require landscaping, substantial landscaping changes. This would include Block 9, this would include the Frisbee Park, it would include other stretches of medians and broadways and so on. That we will include a line item so to support the expenses of those kinds of landscaping projects for the next 3 to 4 years at least. That is a good thing to do because we want to maintain our community and keep it green and keep it vibrant and pretty. So these are the recommendations. This is the end of our budget committee report to the Board of Directors. We presented this on June 19th to the Board of Directors and to the audience membership that was present. We've created this slideshow and video presentation for those who could not attend and may not be able to attend any open meetings that we're going to be having shortly to talk about budget and expenses and so on. And who may not be able to attend the July meeting of the Board of Directors will be taking action on the budget. So with that said, again, I'm Bill Van Patten, Treasurer of the Homeowners Association. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and we wish you a great summer and hope to see you at our meetings. And thank you very much for your attention.